Our coverage begins in Abuja, where the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has met with Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu to discuss on programs and initiatives that can help revive the nation's economy and reduce the sufferings of citizens. Dr Okonjo-Iweala, who was accompanied to the meeting by Dr Ali Pate, a ministerial nominee and former Minister of State for Health, says that the discussion also reviewed investment opportunities for Nigeria's businesses, community in several sectors of the economy. News Center's Amadine Uyi reports.
The meeting was the first between the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu. A few years ago, both of them were on opposing sides of the political divide, as President Tinubu's Action Congress of Nigeria served as the major opposition party to the then ruling People's Democratic Party. However, with a change in fortunes of the two political parties, the meeting is supposed to achieve one purpose: the recovery of Nigeria's economy and the reduction of the hardship on citizens.
We saw the president and focused on how do we support Nigerians at this time of need. We all know that things are very difficult for Nigerians outside. Everyone is struggling. I'm here myself on a quiet visit, so this was not really an official WTO mission, but we were able to engage with Mr. President to talk about what are the kinds of programs that could be put in place to make sure that the suffering of Nigerians are being alleviated.
The purpose of this visit with Mr. President, I think I'll just reaffirm that Mr. President is fully aware of the difficulties that people are facing and committed, and I think doing all that he can and with his team to ensure that those sufferings are alleviated. And that was the main thrust of the conversation that we had.
The Director General, who was accompanied by a recently cleared ministerial nominee and former Minister of State for Health, says discussions centered around the mobilization of Nigerians at a grassroots level and review of investment opportunities that can grow the nation's economy.
And we had a really good conversation on trying to look at community and grassroots programs that can be put in place to create jobs for young people, on trying to support women and children who are those who are bearing the brunt of some of the suffering in the country. We talked about how for the longer term we need to look at investment opportunities that Nigeria can seize, including in the pharmaceutical industry.
In terms of targeting those who are most vulnerable, women, children, youth, attracting the investment opportunities that can grow the economy so that our people get some succor. The difficulties that we're facing is transitory. I think with the vision of Mr. President, I think there's reason to be very hopeful that we'll navigate through this difficult time and have a Nigeria that sees us stronger, united, and inspired for the greatness that is in our future.
She also added that the discussion also centered on support from the World Trade Organization, especially in the areas of capacity building for women and SMEs, including exposing their businesses to international markets.
We also talked about what type of support the WTO, the World Trade Organization, can bring. We are already working in Nigeria with women in particular who own small and medium enterprises to try to help them upgrade the quality of their products, whether it's in the agricultural area, in textiles, and in other areas, so that they can sell more internationally. We're trying to help them with digital trade. The wave of the future is digital trade. So how do we train, empower, and give Nigerian women and owners of small and medium enterprises support?
With the meeting focusing on reviving the nation's economy, Nigerians will be hoping that citizens begin to reap the benefits of this engagement. Amadine Uyi, reporting for News Central.
Still in the villa, President Bola Tinubu earlier today inaugurated the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. The committee is charged with the responsibility of transforming the tax system to support sustainable development and achieve a minimum of 18% tax-to-GDP ratio within the next 3 years. News Center's Michael Dibia reports.
At the inauguration, President Tinubu said the members will be guided by national interest above all. The committee, which has 1 year span, is established to address the broad fiscal challenges facing the Nigerian economy through fiscal governance, tax reforms, and growth facilitation. President Tinubu said the board has at its objective the advancement of viable and cost-effective solutions to issues such as multiplicity of tax collection agencies, the high cost of revenue administration, and the lack of effective coordination between fiscal and economic policies across all levels of government.
The committee has been established to address the broad fiscal challenges facing our economy. Its mandate shall be divided into 3 broad areas. These are: 1. Fiscal governance. B. Tax reforms. And 3rd, growth facilitation.
The chairman of the committee, Taiwo Oyedele, said if the country is to achieve the needed growth, aside from other necessities, there is the need to create a conducive environment to attract private and foreign investment through a comprehensive approach and coordinated strategy. He further hinted that the committee will involve ways of mobilizing more tax revenue without necessarily increasing tax burdens.
Our approach will be comprehensive and long-term focused, addressing fiscal concerns related to sustainable development goals as well as multidimensional poverty.
Speaking after the inauguration, the representative of the World Bank said the agenda of the committee is key to helping Nigeria achieve inclusive growth with more economic opportunities and better services for Nigerians.
Well, we look forward to a day where Nigeria is fully financing those from its own government resources. And so I would love to see a day where the work of this committee lays the foundation for making our financing redundant.
Members of the committee were drawn from the private and public sectors and ministries. Departments and relevant agencies are further charged to cooperate fully with the committee towards achieving their mandate. Michael Dibia, reporting for News Central, Abuja.
Many thanks, Michael. Let's dig deeper into this story and, of course, explore the impact of maybe the visit of the World Trade Organization leader. We're joined by tax expert Michael Ango. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we talk about taxes, let me quickly take your thoughts on the visit of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. 15 years ago, nobody would have imagined Tinubu and her sitting at the same table. So I want to ask you, how noteworthy is this visit of the World Trade Organization head?
Good evening, and thank you for having me on your show. I think I'll start from saying that I do not necessarily agree that 15 years ago no one would have envisaged this visit, because if you remember, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala came from the World Bank I think in 2003. So she has always been someone that wasn't a traditional politician, as you see. So she was a technocrat who came into government and governance in Nigeria. And I think she's been able to maintain that image and profile. So it is not unthinkable that, merely because she worked or served under a government that was in a different party than that of the current president, Tinubu, that she would not come to see him, as it were, because in her role as the Director General of the World Trade Organization, she is essentially a global citizen. She's representing the WTO, but of course she's a Nigerian citizen, and of course she must then be seen to be, interacting with her home government. And again, this is a government that has just come into office. It's barely 2 months in office. So I think that it's important that it's been seen to engaging with the right stakeholders. So I think our visit, whether it was herself or any other person of Nigerian, a Nigerian holding that position, we would expect that such a person would come to see the newly elected president of Nigeria, especially at this point in time when, as we know, that the Nigerian economy faces severe challenges and, they've had to take some very hard decisions, removal of subsidies, we like call harmonization of, exchange rates between the parallel and the official markets and all of that. So I think her visit was expected. I thought she would come, and I was expecting to see her come anytime soon. What is important is that whatever discussions she's had with the president, whatever ideas, whatever initiatives that she can bring as the DG of the World Trade Organization to help Nigeria, of course, play in the global market, improve trade with our, trade partners in Africa and globally, I think it will be welcome. So I expected her to come sooner than later, and I think her visit is quite timely.
Yes, let's hope for something out of that meeting. Let's talk about taxes now. The word tax sends some kind of unfriendly feeling to people. First, help us understand why taxation is such an important thing to be receiving so much attention from the government.
Well, the popular saying, there are two things that are certain in life, debt and taxes. But that only applies in an economy or a country that has very highly developed tax system, where persons are expected to pay their taxes, not just pay their taxes, pay them timely and pay them in a complete and accurate manner. If you look at the trajectory of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu right from his time as governor of Lagos State, you would expect that one of the very first places he would go to would be tax reform. He's been credited with essentially turning around the revenue profile of Lagos State. I think the figures that we had was that when he became governor, Lagos State was doing barely 600 million a month. And at the time he left, I think Lagos was at about 20 or more billion. Today they're probably doing about 40 billion a month or so. So it was expected, at least from my perspective, I expected that he would do some very quick work in the area of tax reform. But more than that, Nigeria in the last 4 to 8 years, had to heavily leverage on borrowing simply because we didn't have the revenue from other sources, from taxation and sale of crude oil, as it were, to finance our budget. So we had to lean heavily on debt, whether from China, from World Bank, from IMF, and all of that, to finance our budget, through our projects. So Nigeria is really facing severe challenges when it comes to revenue. We have a debt to service profile of probably, 90, depending on who you want to believe, 90 to 100 or whatever percentage of our revenue. And that is totally unsustainable. You cannot be earning 100 naira and then you're losing all of that or most of it.
Okay. I think we kind of have a picture now, hopefully. Let's look at some of the challenge that comes up with doing business in Nigeria as it relates to taxation, and that's the issue of double taxation. There's been allegations and counter-allegations, promises upon promises, yet there appear not to be an end to different agencies of government taxing same people for similar purpose. How dangerous is multiple taxation to the survival of the economy? And do you see this as part of what this committee will address?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, multiple taxation, however you want to look at it, is quite a challenge for businesses. As a business, you are in business basically for two reasons. One, of course, is to turn a profit for your shareholders, but two is to be able to provide value to the economy. And when a business is stifled by having to pay taxes to different agencies of government, whether at the state, federal, or even local government, such a business cannot function. Not only just paying the taxes, you're also spending significant amounts of time, having to arrange your tax affairs, administrative issues. So there's also a cost side to it, which isn't just in terms of the taxes you pay, but in terms of even the compliance. And so one of the things that I picked up from the president speech was the reality of lack of coordination between revenue generating agencies, and in fact, he mentioned the issue of multiplicity of revenue generating agencies. So maybe what we're going to be seeing going forward is that we're going to have to streamline the number of revenue generating agencies we have in Nigeria. But not just that. I think one very important thing also is to even streamline the number of taxes that are being collected. Because as an investor, as a business person, if I come into Nigeria and I want to do business, I would be happy if I could pay my taxes to one or two agencies. But when you have to pay to, 4, 5, 6, 17, 18, 20 agencies, it's a significant administrative burden on you. So it's one of the things I certainly believe that the committee will look at.
All right. In the interest of time, quickly, I'd like your thoughts on key recommendation you will give to the committee in order to lay a viable foundation on which a transparent and sustainable fiscal policy and tax system will thrive. And of course, your level of confidence in the constitution of the committee. In 40 seconds, if you can, please.
Well, very quickly, I know the chairman of the committee, Taiwo Idele, is a very knowledgeable person. He's been a leader in the tax sector in Nigeria for years, so I have explicit and implicit confidence that he will do a good job. My advice to the committee, as it were, is to ensure that membership is broad enough to reflect the different interests that will come to play from public, private sector, and even the industry, the taxpayers themselves. Importantly also is to see that the committee's work is done very transparently and it's open. We should be able to engage with all the stakeholders and ensure that there's information flow, people know what they're doing, and when we make their recommendations to the president, these recommendations should be publicized so that people can know what is going on, and there should be a system of feedback.
All right.
So we look forward to them and hope they succeed. Yeah.
Wish them the very best of luck in this very important task. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Anger, for sharing your time and your expertise with us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure always to speak with you.